Hi dear students, welcome to the first session of microbiology. We all know what is microbiology because when you split the two words microbiology, the study of microorganisms is microbiology. And every one of you could easily split these two words and find the meaning of microbiology. Quite often, the term microbiology or the study of microbes is often associated with medical issues. As we know today, one such microbe has caused the whole world to be on a standstill or to wait or to stay back for at least some time because of its presence in this world. The coronavirus associated with the COVID 19 pandemic has in fact shown its presence and its effect, and every common man is being affected by it, regardless of being of a particular race, of being of a particular country, or regardless of being present in different parts of the world. So you know how a microorganism can influence the life of humans. And quite often we consider the microbes associated with diseases. But this is not the case always because there are certain good microorganisms also which we come across in our day to day life. Like we have lactobacillus, which is a probiotic bacteria which has been present in the curd or the fermented milk, which is of good use to humans. Like we get lots of vitamins from it. Then we do have various other microbes which will give us immunity or protect us from various attacks of other pathogens. You have certain other microbes which are being used today in genetic engineering techniques, which we use to produce what? Different pharmaceutical products, enzymes, as well as various metabolites. So, at a whole, we cannot consider microorganisms to be bad because we have good candidates as well as bad candidates. And if you have oil spillage in the sea or something like that, you have heard about superbugs, which will help us to remediate this oil. If you have certain pesticides which are being found to be infiltrated onto the soil or not, sometimes in such cases, if you need to remove those pesticides from the soil, you have a good option to use these microbes. And you know, various flavors are being given to some foods because of the presence of certain bacteria which will ferment. And we have various food products which have been associated with microorganisms. So, the study of microbiology not only involves the bad effects of microbes, but we also consider the good effects of microbes and what are the different uses of these microbes come under this process, both the good as well as the bad. Now, when we consider the bad, we need to learn techniques which will help us to control them or sometimes to kill them. So, you have techniques, you come across techniques in which you try to kill the microbes. At the same time, if you want to produce good things from the microbes, you need to know techniques which will help us to grow the microorganisms. And we also come across such techniques. So, at one hand, in microbiology, you are studying methods to grow some microbes, and at the same time, you will come across techniques to kill the microbes. And you also come across good microbes as well as bad microbes. And a balance is being needed to maintain a normal life. And if you go to look into the ecosystem, you can see that most of the biogeochemical cycles, though plants are involved, animals are involved, of course, but at the same time, most of the biogeochemical cycles, especially the nutrient cycles, mainly involves these microbes too. So every part of the earth, let it be the hydrosphere, the atmosphere, or the lithosphere, do contain microorganisms, and they do play a very important role to maintain an ecological balance on this earth. And thus the study of microbiology could involve soil microbiology, air microbiology, water microbiology, and it can also sometimes involve techniques such as industrial microbiology when we use microbes or microbial processes to produce industrially relevant products. Or sometimes you might use microbes to increase the productivity of agriculture. So you come across to agricultural microbiology. And sometimes you might use microbially derived products for the pharmaceutical industry. So that's pharmaceutical microbiology. So the scope of microbiology is being found to be very much large. And basically, you're talking about microorganisms in all these fields. And I hope you will have a good time coming across the different areas of microbiology, which we will be discussing later on in the coming sessions of microbiology classes of this academic year as well as the coming academic years. So, welcome to the microbiological era, and what is microorganisms, and uh, further, what are the features and all that. We will be talking about all of these in the coming classes. So once again, welcome to microbiology. So let's explore microbiology, a snapshot. What are microorganisms? You can see that there are a different range of microorganisms. They could be sometimes bacteria, or sometimes they could be viruses, as we have COVID-19 virus, the coronavirus, or they could be sometimes algal cells, and sometimes they could be the fungi which we come across as mushrooms, the yeast cells which we use normally for fermentation, like the Saccharomyces cerevisiae, or they could be even the common bread mold. And we also come across various other protozoans like amoeba, paramecium, ciliate, flagellates, etc. The under the head of protozoans. So generally, when you speak, the microorganisms includes bacteria, algae, viruses, fungi, as well as the protozoans. And let me ask you something. Why are these organisms called microorganisms? The term micro normally implies that it has a size of 10 to the power of minus 6 meters. Now, if you go to look into a conventional sim as an example, you have standard sims, which are of a particular size. Then we have the micro sims, and finally we have the nano sims. And from this figure itself, it is implying that micro is something smaller than the standard size, and it is bigger than a nano size. Now, what is the size of micro? 10 to the power of minus 6, or 1 by 10 to the power of 10 raised to 6. 1 by 10 to the raise of 6, or 10 to the power of minus 6. That is the size of the organisms which come under the strategy of microorganisms. But if you go to look into this figure, which I had already mentioned to you, you can see that there are certain organisms here which are visible to you using your naked eye also. So not all organisms like under the range of 10 to the power of minus 6 are considered to be as microorganisms, because some of them could be sometimes macroscopic and we could view them also using our naked eye. But most predominantly or most frequently, the organisms which are of the size of microorganisms are generally considered under the term microorganisms. Now, if you go to look into the size of various particles, the sand has the size of about 1 millimeter, pollen has 100 micrometers, RBZs has 10 micrometers, a bacteria has a size of about 1 micrometer. Then comes smaller than that comes the virus, which is 100 nanometer. Nanometer is 10 to the power of minus 9. And below that, we have the proteins of 10 nanometer, the DNA of about 2 nanometer, then a C60 which is about 1 nanometer, then you have the atom which is considered to be as zero point 0.1 nanometer. So when you're dealing with microorganisms, you are trying to view things which are smaller than your RBC but bigger than your DNA as well as your protein. I told you there are exemptions, as I told you about the mushroom, that is an exceptional case, as well as various fungi. So when you're dealing with such small organisms, how do we view them? You need to view them basically using certain microscopes. And we have different scopes of types of microscopes, and they have different purposes. And where do you find these microorganisms? You can find them all around you, either on your surface, in the air that you come across, the animals which you come across, the plants as well as the animals, the air, the soil, the water. So that is the reason that we say that the areas of microbiology are being found to be wide, covering different ecosystems as well as different members of the ecosystem. I hope you got an introduction to microbiology by this session. Thank you for now.